Gunfire Reborn is a roguelite built on speed,
Fast boy.
scaling, and stacking power, where every run promises momentum and every mistake compounds fast. On Steam, it sits at overwhelmingly positive, praised for its build variety, its skill expression, and sense of earned power. But for me, that score raises a bigger question. Is Gunfire Reborn actually deep, or just addictive? So, I didn't just play this for an afternoon, I didn't stop at a clean win, I pushed through the grind, the walls, and the achievements to see what breaks first. The builds, the balance, or the player. Because in my opinion, there's no better way to judge a game than by the milestones its creators set for you. My name is The Devotee, and this is Gunfire Reborn. My first run wasn't meant to stop me. Basic enemies, simple patterns, and the Foundry carried most early fights without any resistance. I woke up at my uncle's inn, immediately dropped into stiff, functional dialogue that clearly was not the focus here. The next few runs didn't resist much. Gunfire Reborn opens the floodgates early, clearing the basic acts, stumbling into natural synergies, and the achievements come fast. Even Luwu, a boss that I'd been warned about, didn't slow me down that much. I did go down, but the triple comeback scroll gave me room to recover. This is just another system smoothing the early learning curve. Scrolls drop from enemies and can be bought for copper from the peddlers, and they have tangible effects on your run, so be sure to pick them up. That momentum finally cracked in the desert. A group of snipers dropped me, and I burned the teal currency to revive, only to die again not long after, ending my first run. That's when Gunfire revealed to me its backbone, a talent screen where that same blue currency becomes permanent upgrades. Failures don't reset you, they just strengthen your next attempt. I spread my soul essence across every tree. After clicking through a wall of unlocks, that's when Rose decided to join me. An ancient Chinese philosopher once said,
Two big titty fiery bitches are better than one.
so wise, even beyond the grave. And that's when she showed me vaults, optional side areas that trade time and risk for extra scrolls, gold, and essence. I picked up a brick weapon almost as a joke, the kind of simple option you don't expect to matter. Then we hit the next boss, and the damage spiked hard. Suddenly, this crude brick was taking massive chunks out of health bars, and it was my first real glimpse at how wild Gunfire Reborn scaling can get. Rose handed me the Cloud Weaver next, and it barely felt like aiming, more like just tracking targets and letting the weapon do the work. The range was absurd, and for the first time, positioning mattered more than trigger discipline. The second run ended with a clear reality check. Rose was doing several times my damage, and I felt completely carried. Back in the talent screen, I pushed into the level 10 row and spread deeper into the expedition tree. Economy was already proving important. Upgrading and swapping Gemini inscriptions, buying scrolls, and staying flexible felt more impactful than raw firepower. Then my uncle tried to talk story with me again. Something about a partner being the absolute bane of this tragedy, followed immediately by, "Anyway, the world should be at peace now." The text was in plain English, but I swear I'm reading Mandarin right now. Elite mode unlocked, stronger enemies, but an even stronger pull toward greed. More risk, more resources, more systems opening all at once. Rose also dropped all the DLC on me, which widened the sandbox immediately. For the first time, I stopped reacting and started aiming, digging through the achievement list, locking on to the starter character, and actually focusing the hunt. By the third run, vaults were fully open, and things started getting riskier. With two of us, we could revive each other without burning soul essence, which kept the run alive even when it got dicey. Most of the time, though, we were still tearing through stages. That confidence bit me in the ass when I grabbed a scroll called Dual Edge. I thought it was pure upside, but it wasn't. I misread it, and by the time I checked my stats, my damage resistance was deep in the negative. So I dropped it immediately. Early or not, I wasn't interested in becoming a glass cannon. Well, speaking of cannons, Yorohime Maru wasn't about raw damage. We had to break artillery and return fire, then survive a second phase against the Snot Rocketeer. Gluttony came right after, and by comparison, barely slowed us down. By this point, the pattern was clear. Some fights tested mechanics, and others just tested whether your build was online or not. The run ended with a small win. I actually kept pace on damage, sitting at 21 million to Rose's 25. Times Down told a different story though, thanks Dual Edge. Back in the talent screen, I leaned hard into economy, maxing out my chance for double coins. Call it greed if you want, but I also capped teammate revive speed. Nightmare mode was unlocked, and honestly, I expected more resistance. I opened up with a Starfly, which immediately put me in a good place, and even the weaker scrolls felt like they had potential with the right setup. Instead of tightening the screws, Nightmare folded fast. Even the Pole Monarch, intimidating as he looked, couldn't slow the run. I went down once, but the recovery was instant. When I hit a final boss on Nightmare mode, I expect more of a fight. Great if you want to feel unstoppable, less so if you're looking to grow into the power. Let's check the damage numbers. Holy shit, rose 81 million? I capped my crit chance in the talent tree and started the next run solo. I needed to be alone to unlock a specific avatar frame, so the goal was clear. Every ascension choice went into orb upgrades, committing fully to the plan. I cleared Lu Wu without taking a single hit. Solo or not, the fight barely even registered. Once I had a few orb upgrades, I went for it. I tried multiple times, with my best run landing just over 7 seconds. I didn't have the upgrades yet, simple as that. On the next elite attempt, the timing came down to the wire. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I checked it afterward, I was robbed. 10 seconds and 28 frames. Maybe Gunfire counts time differently than the rest of us. So I dumped more soul essence into the hero tab, hoping the next run would finally be enough to earn the frame. I wrapped up the first stream at 6.5 hours, 40 achievements in. It was around this point that I'd realized something important. Not all achievements are created equal. The completion percentages Steam shows aren't really a measure of true difficulty. Some achievements unlock just by breathing. Others feel like entire side quests of their own. So I started sorting them into tiers. From here on out, whenever I'm hunting a tier 2 or higher achievement, I'll show a quick card explaining the requirements so you know exactly what I'm chasing. Also, everything you saw before this, yeah, that was all tier 1. I came back determined to clear the roster, starting with Albai, a Rottweiler built around dual wielding and brute force. Early on, I grabbed an ammo belt that doubled my reserves, which fit the plan perfectly. And later in the run, I bought out a peddler's entire stock because I was feeling like a generous boss. I also picked up Merciless Combo, which gives stacking weapon damage every time you land a hit, and it's absolutely god tier. Except my weapons were kind of low fire rate, so I wasn't really getting the value of it yet. Sir, there's been a second minigun. I really enjoyed whipping out both miniguns and just mowing things down with Merciless Combo stacking up. Once it got rolling, enemies just melted before they could even respond. Snipers were the occasional problem, but that's what teammates are for. My focus stayed locked on battle-tested ascensions, extending dual wield uptime as much as possible. The run eventually ended, but that's part of the loop. Back in town, I unlocked recycling at 20% sell value. I am going to be the greediest piece of shit teammate these two have ever known. Almost immediately I found another big hippo, and of course I took it. My health dipped fast, which led to the oldest mistake in the book, hoping there was a chicken in a barrel. Ow! That accidental explosion downed me. And then, unbelievably, I found another big hippo. Right after that, ammo expert showed up, and now I was cooking with gas.
Yeah, boy.
Passive ammo recovery turns reckless builds into sustainable ones, especially when you're chewing through bullets this fast. And at this point, I'd recycled so much gear that I became a thrifty expert, which felt great right up until I died to an Ichthyosaurus offspring because I didn't know it had a melee attack. That one hurt. My teammates went down under the extra pressure, and the run collapsed fast. I always feel really bad dying early and forcing everyone else to either carry harder or lose outright. That's when I started dumping points into the survival tree. Living longer means more damage over time, and sometimes that's all a run really needs. I also learned something important. Every time you go down, you gain a stack that makes you bleed out faster the next time you go down. The revitalization perk clears those stacks when you self-revive with soul essence, and also when you clear axe. If you're having a bad run, this can save you. Next run, I picked up Deadly Counter, which turns all weapon hits into crits for 3 seconds after you get hit. That one's gonna matter later. Seriously, take notes. I also grabbed the Angelic Aura, an SMG with a completely irresponsible fire rate. And, like clockwork, Merciless Combo showed up again. God, look at this elite melt. I think I just came. The art of explosion, if you will. And then a Star Devourer rolled in for sloppy seconds while reloading itself. So, remember when I said to take notes? Deadly Counter came in clutch here. I took a hit, it activated, and I was already set up, dual-wielding 2 high fire rate weapons and unloading straight into the horde. I don't necessarily feel like a sharpshooter, but Gunfire seemed convinced. I bought It's on the House scroll from a peddler, making my first purchase from every future peddler free. That's an insanely good scroll. And then, meaning to buy and scrap some random weapon, I threw down my Star Driver and scrapped it before my brain caught up with my hands. That was the biggest blunder of all time. The run wasn't over, but I was furious with myself. Still, from that point on, every peddler was basically offering me money for nothing. You see what I mean with the translation? What does this even mean?
I don't speak Spanish! Yeah!
This run ended in a win, securing Albai's victory. Afterward, I put more soul essence into the survival tree, especially Life Guardian. If I take lethal damage above this threshold, I get a brief window of invincibility, just enough time to disengage and recover. Next up was Le Luo, a snow leopard built around Fatal Current, trading setup for bursts of amplified damage. His throwable chained lightning between enemies, but he wasn't built to brawl. I was advised to play him as a sniper, so I did. I grabbed a tiny crossbow and stayed in the backlines until I found Lightning Kasana, which immediately changed the pace of the run. This weapon actually let Leiluo breathe. Paired with my Starfly for mid to close range cleanup, this kit finally clicked. By this point, I'd recycled enough gear to clearly demonstrate my diligence and thrift. That said, Leiluo just didn't click for me. After the third boss, we took the easy way out and just ended the run, locking in Leiluo's victory. Back in the inn, I dumped everything into the survival tree again. Next up was Qingyan the Birdman. Instead of shields, he runs on armor, and most of it has to be actively rebuilt through his leap. Early on, I showed off my wave-like subtle step, grabbing both vault scrolls without taking damage. Then the build started to take shape. I grabbed a golden goblet and found easy kill. Every enemy finished with cleave permanently boosts cleave damage for the rest of the run. From that point on, I tried to kill everything with it. I love Qingyan's up-close, all-in combat style. Nothing feels better to me than diving into a group and being the only one to walk out. Another goblet sealed it with Cleave Carnival, extra cleave capacity, plus a refund on kills. At that point, weapons were optional. I found the Paranormality scroll, locking my max HP to 1 but doubling my armor. Since Qingyan can rebuild armor easily, I took it without hesitation. With nearly 7,000 copper burning a hole in my pocket, I went to the craftsman and immediately reforged my weapon instead of upgrading it. So I kept reforging, trying to get my Gemini inscription back. Just one more time. Oh, I got it back. Sweet! By the time we reached the final boss, my cleave was dealing an extra 2,590 base damage. With Rose's help, Qingyan's victory was secured. This bird is my favorite character so far, but there's still more to try. Next on the roster was Tao. I actually liked her abilities a lot, they're quite strong. I just wish she would stop moaning.
Stop it! It's turning me on! Stop!
Since I already had the achievement for scrapping every item, I played more supportive this run, sharing everything unless someone explicitly passed on it. I'm such a philanthropist. Eventually we hit the desert parkour vault again, and reluctantly I went in. I grabbed the easy chest, then struggled hard with the second. That's when Rose explained the trick. You can jump from each zipline directly to the next. Before that, I'd been falling and praying I was close enough to latch on. As evidenced by earlier runs, I am terrible at parkour. Rose, however, trained me into a top athlete. By now, individual runs were starting to blur together. Different characters, same loop. Find a weapon that works, upgrade it, and stack scrolls and ascensions that push the build in one direction. It is a satisfying rhythm, but it's also predictable. Enemy variety is limited, bosses even more so, and once you understand the loop, the game rarely surprises you inside it so far. With this Star Destroyer dealing lightning damage, I started to feel an electromagnetic effect. Between my crits and Rose's mech soaking pressure, the Pole Monarch did not last long. That sealed the run and secured the victory of Tao. I dumped all my soul essence into the expedition tree, especially expanding the peddler's inventory so scrolls showed up more often. Then we started the next run, and I picked Lee, the Firefox. No relation. Lee's kit immediately stood out. Her secondary drops a meteor which feeds energy back into her primary, and her ascensions chain together beautifully. It all felt cohesive. I also ran into Pain for Gain, 3 curses up front, but every stage clear gives a 50% chance to convert one into a normal scroll. I like those odds. Before the end of the third session, I'd fired off 100,000 bullets, and I started to feel like Rambo. I was a very happy-go-lucky traveler too, smashing pots with the same reckless confidence Link would be proud of. Somewhere along the way, that turned into real momentum, enough to make me a master, after stacking 10 legendary scrolls. This run was effortless. Even the final boss folded without much resistance. At this point, the world felt born of fire. I dumped more soul essence into the survival tree, and the game decided to call me an ultimate grinder. I didn't really feel like one though. I hadn't even reached the point where I think most people would put the game down. Next up was Nona, the mechanic. Her mech could soak aggro while she worked from safety, so I leaned hard into ascensions that boosted its health, let it tank, pick enemies apart. My favorite pistol that run was the Viper Sight. After landing just 3 crits, the next one fires a spread that crits nearby enemies. The aiming bonus, lining up a shot, reveals enemy weak points, and once I noticed that, I barely used it. I had a close call when a boss knocked me down, but my mech finished it off. During Yorohime Maru, I must have had some kind of battlefield radar, because I dodged every cannon shot launched at me. The rest of the run stayed smooth. Poison Ivy kept enemies weakened. Crits came easy, and I just kept moving. Nona's kind of fun. The final boss though, one I'd beaten plenty of times before, suddenly wasn't playing along. He ignored the mech, stayed on me, and I couldn't crit just fast enough to keep control. And then he killed me. I was completely unbothered. Losing a run meant maybe an hour gone, and I'd already picked up a pile of achievements along the way. Back at the inn, I finally finished out the survival tree and jumped into another run as Nona. Early on, I took a trade for a legendary scroll at the cost of a cursed one. Minus 10% movement speed. Meh. Rose immediately softened the blow by handing me another Viper Sight. Thank you. The curse didn't last long anyway. I found another chest that offered to remove it for free. Then we found another chest, and both of us got so absorbed in staring at it that we didn't even notice we were under attack. I went down, Rose picks me up, she goes down, I pick her up. Then I walked straight back to the chest and immediately went down again. NPC behavior. But the box is just so cool. Rose and I left a burning city in our wake, with me critting nearly every shot I took. It helped that Rose could freeze enemies in place, letting me line up crits over and over. The Pole Monarch never stood a chance, especially when he planted himself to charge an attack. That locked in victory of Nona, and with it our erudition of the game. I dumped my soul essence into the weapon tree, boosting both the chance and number of exclusive inscriptions on dropped weapons. Those inscriptions are huge. They don't just tweak stats, they fundamentally change how a weapon performs. Next up was Crossing Z. We were feeling confident, so we cranked the difficulty back up to Nightmare. I didn't really understand his abilities, and that's on me. I was more interested in playing than learning, which is a personal flaw of mine, not the game's. That impatience cost me. I went down with over 4,000 copper still in my pocket. It would have been a painful death if it weren't for Rose bailing me out. Then I picked up the tracker and immediately fell in love. Right-clicking lets the bullets home in on a marked target, and I was just critting constantly. So much so that I couldn't tell if I disliked Crossing Z or just the difficulty, especially since I was still outpacing Rose's damage. Picking up Hawkeye's sight pushed that even further, which explains this legendary shot. Over 300,000 damage in a single hit. The Pole Monarch, needless to say, didn't survive. At this point, I was tearing through the game like it was nothing. The victory of Crossing Z was secured. And then I checked the damage. 64 million. Back at the inn, I finished out the weapon tree and dumped the rest into the battle tree. Rose suggested upgrading hero skills, but I preferred the investments that helped every run, not just specific characters for now. It felt smarter long term. 3 sessions in, and I'd already cleared over half the achievements. I was proud and maybe a little too comfortable. Next up was Zixiao, the owl. I tried to read all of his abilities.
Wow, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
At least it's all professionally written. Randomly. Once I actually started using his kit, it felt decent right out of the gate. Each thrown card hit hard enough to matter. Then I picked up a goblet and thought, alright, let's see what upgrades we're working with, and immediately got handed several books worth of text. I hate reading. This much, anyway. Eventually, I grabbed the golden bow, and that at least clicked instantly. I had a blast with this. I wouldn't call myself a shopaholic, but I had bought 100 items from the peddler. Where's my loyalty card? Mechanically, Zizao was clearly doing something interesting. Every time I used my throwable, these little scroll icons would start lining up in the bottom of the UI, and when they mashed, my primary ability hit a lot harder. I'm sure he's insanely strong when you actually pay attention. I just didn't have the energy to this session. So I defaulted back to the usual plan. Grab the tracker, stack crits, and let muscle memory take over. And it worked. I was only on elite difficulty, which definitely helped. By the time we reached the desert, though, Zizao's cards weren't doing much anymore. I was kind of a letdown. For a hero with such a clever concept, the payoff felt flat. The cards mostly boiled down to just raw damage when they could have easily encouraged different buffs. Pole Monarch went down once more, and with that, victory of Zizao was secured. Next up was Qiansui. Even more reading, but this time for a character that plays up close and personal. Just not quite Qingyan's level. I grabbed a Viper Sight and immediately felt like a cowboy in a spaghetti western. I crit so hard that I deleted the boss in under 10 seconds. It was absurdly powerful fire.
Jesus Christ.
Pole Monarch followed shortly after. You already know how that went. I used his blood as paint, crowning myself a painting master. And with that, secured Qiansui's win. After dumping my soul essence into the technique tree, I started my run as Lin. Her kit is refreshingly straightforward. Every enemy gets a new weak point that she can target to slow and eventually freeze them. On top of that, enemies have a small bar under their health called the lethal line. If I hit them with my primary ability while they're below that line, they just die. It's a fun design and it felt good to execute, even if I still defaulted back to my crit tracker habits. Using her abilities properly though, I managed to cultivate the most silent winter. Rose and I blew through this run, as usual, securing the victory of Lin. I dumped the next batch of soul essence into the last remaining tree, and we rolled straight into the next run. This time with me as Momo. Oh my god, so much to read. It's so hard being a streamer when you don't know how to read. I genuinely did not understand any of her abilities. I officially hit 100 deaths over my time in this game, and I was labeled death proof. That doesn't make sense. The run itself went smoothly, aside from me going down constantly, and victory of Momo was secured anyway. Next up was Yo-Yo. Same story, ignorant achievement hunter, staring down paragraphs of text and choosing not to engage. Seriously, I tried, I just did not have the attention span. I did spam my throwable non-stop though, which turned me into a grenade master in the process. Rose went down, and suddenly it was on me to save the run. Viper Sight build go brrrr. The game decided that counted as leadership, crowning me team captain. And somehow, once again, the Pole Monarch drew the short straw. How many times are we gonna kill this poor thing? Either way, victory of Yo-Yo was secured. Finally, Kang Jue was up next. I opened his abilities and, oh for fuck, even his ascensions are full paragraphs. From what I think I understand, activating his primary sends him into full Roid Rage mode, building vigor that lets him chain additional abilities. It's a cool idea, probably a lot of fun if I actually read what I was doing. Didn't matter, victory of Kang Jue was inevitable. With every tree finished, I could finally start dumping resources into specific heroes. After trying most of the roster, I hit the point where I think the average player would stop, or only keep playing casually with their friends. The loop is solid and satisfying, but once you understand it, runs start to blur together. Bosses quickly become very familiar, and difficulty increases rarely force meaningful adaptation. You only really die because you got screwed over by RNG. You don't quit because you're frustrated, you quit because you've seen what the game has to show you. Gunfire Reborn is good at rewarding competence, but not great at challenging mastery. Its systems are polished, generous, and fun to engage with, yet they rarely demand restraint, precision, or deep understanding once raw damage is online. I had clear favorites, clear dislikes, and a lot of heroes that landed somewhere in between. Not bad, not great, just solved. In the end, I didn't walk away angry or disappointed, I walked away satisfied and done. For me, that's what makes Gunfire Reborn a secret third thing. Not bad, not great, just mid. But we aren't just average gamers here, we're achievement hunters and there's still 53 achievements to change my opinions. I jumped into the daily challenge, Economic Pressure. Every 30 copper I held shaved off a point of health or shield. And every time I picked up a scroll or goblet, I gained 600 gold and lost another chunk of survivability. To make it even stranger, spending gold actually gave me more of it. The only real way to relieve the pressure was killing enemies, which slowly drained my wallet back down. If only I had read. I jumped in with my usual greedy playstyle and got absolutely destroyed for it. I was carrying so much money that I ended up with 1 health and 1 shield. On the next run, I slowed down. I was careful about which scrolls and goblets I took, kept my gold in check, and actually played around the modifier. I ended up killing Luwu and somehow cleared the challenge. That was a pretty nice, fresh start for the session. I jumped into Reincarnation difficulty. After clearing Hyperborean Jokel, Golden Goblets now replace an existing Ascension with a new one, letting you fine-tune your build. Unless the goblet drops from a boss, in which case it works normally. I also ran into some new faces. The Spiritual Remnant let me spend Soul Essence on powerful blessings, and the Phantom Peddler offered enhanced weapons and scrolls, again for Essence instead of Copper. And then I got destroyed, of course. Rose said she'd be joining soon, so I dropped back to Elite while I waited, hoping to maybe grab the exclusive frame for Crown Prince. I absolutely dominated with the Golden Bow again, and then the sharks showed up. They hooked me straight into oblivion. I went down, burned some soul essence to continue, and immediately got reminded that there is in fact no place to hide. Losing this run kinda sucked, but hey, at least I got an achievement out of it. For this run, I targeted a specific achievement, as I'll buy. Keep your primary ability active for 300 seconds. With Rose and Hex joining me, we cranked it back up to Reincarnation and enabled the mysterious Jokel modifier, making enemies noticeably tankier. I started hunting specifically for high fire rate weapons. Early on, I grabbed Ammo Expert Ascensions, giving me passive ammo regeneration, and then I hit the jackpot with an Angelic Aura, an absolutely insane fire rate, over 1300 rounds per 100 seconds. From there, every new area started the same way. Dual wield on, hold the trigger, erase everything in front of me. This was fun as hell. One room in particular spawned multiple elite enemies at once, which made it even better. My teammates soaked aggro while I focused each enemy down one by one, and the whole fight felt controlled instead of chaotic. As the run went on, I grabbed battle-tested Ascensions wherever they appeared, stretching my dual wield time further and further. On the way to the final boss, I got surrounded by exploding lantern spirits.
Oh no!
There was truly no way to escape. Somehow, things only got better. I found another Angelic Aura. These bitches shoot so fast. Pair that with Deft Hands, where kills let you fire without consuming ammo for 2 seconds, and I suddenly had infinite firing potential. We ran into another pack of elite enemies, but Albai's innate tankiness and recovery carried me through. While reviving allies, I was still mowing everything down. Then I picked up an infinite upgrade scroll and dumped all my money into upgrading both Angelic Auras. From there, the final stretch was a breeze. I finally grabbed Battle-Tested 3, letting my dual-wield duration extend every time I fired enough bullets. By the time we hit the arena, it was over. Gluttony got absolutely deleted, proving I'm a dual-wield elite. He died, but I was still firing for a solid few minutes afterward. That's where Ammo Expert really paid off. I ran out, but I would get more a second later. We charged full force straight into the next run, and we would return to the apex. I swapped back to one of my favorites, Qingyan, with 2 goals in mind. Stack 3000 bonus damage on cleave through easy kill, and land 5 enemy pounce kills 50 times. Rose suggested we crank on a bunch of modifiers for the run. Sure, why not? It was then I met the Training Master. Oh man, more reading. You can take temporary debuffs in red, complete a challenge, and earn permanent buffs in blue. Or, if you fail the challenge, the debuffs become permanent. Honestly, kind of cool. I started knocking out the pounce kills mostly thanks to a beetle mother that kept spawning groups of 5 or 6 enemies at a time. Later on, we reached Ascension Fusion, where you can remove 2 of your own Ascensions and replace them with 2 random ones. I passed. Everything I could already get fed directly into the plan. Along the way, I manipulated enough enemies with hallucination poison. I finally snagged easy kill, and from that point on, I stopped shooting for the most part, leaving my way through the enemy. Being that close to everything while killing it earned me the title Savage Butcher. The run was going great. and then Rose had to go. I wanted to save the run with her, so we grabbed the soul essence, assuming we could come back later. If the main menu says continue adventure, the run's safe. It didn't. The run was gone. It wasn't a total waste, but losing it like that kinda sucked. I really wish there was a way to pause a co-op run and come back later if everyone's present, because this run deserved to finish. Another session, another daily challenge. All shield converted to HP, no buns for healing, but I had lifesteal. 0.5% per hit meant every 200 damage healed 1 health, and every 5,000 damage permanently increased my max health. Albi was the obvious pick. He's already tanky, and his ascensions scale well with sustained damage. I got a golden bow right off the bat and just started deleting enemies from a distance. No aggro, constant healing, and my max health slowly crept upward. The only downside was that the golden bow can't be dual wielded, so some ascensions were basically dead picks. Still, by the time I hit Yorihime Maru, the run was already decided. The boss dropped, the daily ended there, and honestly that was even easier than the last one. Now it was time to chase a real achievement. As the Crown Prince, in solo mode, I needed to freeze an elite enemy for 10 consecutive seconds, the one that had slipped through my fingers earlier. I jumped in solo on Reincarnation 2, keeping the run modifiers Rose had recommended. This one needed focus. Ascension Fusion helped a lot here, letting me remove options that didn't contribute to the goal and narrow the build towards pure freeze control. I had a decent build going, but the stone golem caught me completely off guard. I didn't realize that the pillars exploded, and that ended my run fast. At that point, I just accepted it. This is what solo runs are going to be like. Next attempt went much smoother. I tore through the early stages and even got labeled a tactical sniper. Turns out it helps when your bullets track your targets for you. I nearly lost the run to an elite spider though. Got pinned, went down, and revived myself purely out of spite. I actually got pretty lucky with ascensions. 3 stacks in chain duration and 1 in power source. Exactly what I needed for the freeze setup. Other than that, it was a pretty standard run. Crit build, steady progress. Then I found a chest offering to reroll all my weapon inscriptions for 800 gold. It felt like the spirit of the game to try it out. My gun came out so much worse. Eventually I ran into an elite and tried to lock it down with energy chain, but it didn't hold long enough. By the time I could cast again, the freeze had already worn off. I guess some elites have resistance to status effects. That was incredibly discouraging. On top of that, everything was taking forever to kill, so I just ended the run there. The next run lined up perfectly. Chain duration 3 and power source 3. Exactly what I needed. All I had to do now was find an elite. This was a normal run. I didn't find a single elite before the end. Even more discouraging. And a small but persistent annoyance. When I hit escape to end a run and press confirm, you'd think it would immediately take you back to the main menu. Instead, it just forces you to sit there and watch your character do nothing, even after trying it multiple times. Duo Yi games, please fix. So I swapped over to endless mode and set a rule for myself. If I didn't have a proper freeze build online by the time I reached the first Gluttony or Pole Monarch, I'd end the run myself and reset. Honestly, I started to appreciate the resistance. Chasing this achievement actually required planning, patience, and a bit of discipline, something the rest of the game hadn't really demanded up to this point. At a Phantom Peddler, I found a tracker with 2 exclusive inscriptions, already a huge power spike. While clearing areas, I blew up enough arsonists by shooting the barrels on their backs to keep my eyes on weakness. And then a peculiar chest offered me another exclusive inscription at the cost of a curse. I took it immediately. Now each shot had a chance to fire 1, 2, 3, or even 6 extra projectiles. From there, I tried the setup on every elite I saw. When I ran into a Crab Vanguard, I cleared out all his Crabblings first and locked him down. Freeze, wait for the indicator to start blinking, cast again. Each cycle got tighter and faster, but eventually, I nailed it, perfecting my energy chain. I could have ended the run there, but honestly I didn't have much time left that night anyway, so I just kept going and let it play out. I picked up so many scrolls that game that the game labeled me a pragmatist for grabbing anything that might help. But the run started to drag. I was so overpowered that everything just evaporated. When I reached the Pole Monarch, I went for the sub 3-second kill before he could shatter the Spiritual Jade. I mistimed it and let him live a bit too long. I thought I'd crit him much harder than that. The enemies kept getting tankier, but I was getting more bored. At some point, I stopped recycling entirely, and then I started ignoring vaults. When everything melts away, optimization just feels pointless. It's fun to overcome resistance, not just demolish everything with impunity. Another day, another daily. This one was just as easy and honestly not even worth breaking down. It played out exactly how you'd expect. My next target. In solo mode, Nightmare difficulty or higher, I had to clear all stages as Nona, without letting Ironwing die. So I started a Reincarnation 4 run and was genuinely excited. She was fun on my first run. I could heal Ironwing with my secondary ability, so he would soak aggro while I stood back. Between fights I kept him topped off, making it surprisingly hard for him to go down. And also I found Pain for Gain, and it was incredible this run. The curses piled up fast, but by the time the run got moving, most of the downside had already burned away. Another great thing about Nona, Ironwing can revive you. If that doesn't sell you on the character, I don't know what will. Ironwing went down at one point, and naturally, every enemy in the room looked at me and said, "Pow! Ha ha!" I dropped immediately. I burned a self-revive, and thankfully Ironwing stood back up too. I wasn't sure if that would jeopardize the run condition, but I kept going anyway. During the run, I also maxed out one of my favorite ascensions across any character, Battle Pace. Extra damage based on movement speed, and even more speed if I'm using a pistol? Easy choice. Sign me up for a Viper sight though. Better yet, the Spiritual Remnant offered a blessing called Same Boat. I share some of the damage I take with Ironwing, sure, but when he hits enemies, he marks them, and I get +3 crit X against anything that's marked. At the next Spiritual Remnant, I picked up Royal Guard, guaranteeing an elite would spawn at the end of each pre-boss stage. Why is that good, you ask? It's not because I care about the elites, but because each one drops a guaranteed golden goblet. More goblets means more ascensions means more scaling. I was critting absurdly hard, and the Viper Sight's ability to spread damage to nearby enemies just obliterated entire groups. It was a match made in heaven. I reached the Pole Monarch without any real resistance, and even he didn't put up much of a fight. I held off on killing him just until 3 seconds remained on the timer. Hold your breath. He was dead in an instant, with Ironwing still standing. Never defeated. My next target, as Lee on Nightmare or above, defeat any boss using only my primary, Spiritual Flame. So I booted up my browser, easy enough, except this was on Reincarnation 5. Enemies hit way harder here, and I'm still not entirely sure why. Thankfully, I had the fake death spiritual blessing, keeping the run alive whenever things got a little too close to ending. Since Lee has so many buffs to fire damage, I grabbed a sash. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to realize its main source of damage was its humble right click. Once that clicked, enemies started falling like wheat before a scythe. Finally, Luwu, let's do this. Aw man, don't regenerate your shields, that's cheating. I spent way longer in this fight than I care to admit before realizing I'd be there for an hour trying to brute force this achievement. It was way smarter to just keep progressing, get stronger, and find a boss that doesn't regenerate its shields. He did drop an ascension that boosted my energy recovery speed, which helped, but this attempt wasn't meant to be. I found a talisman, another weapon that can swap elements. After grabbing the Gemini inscription to combine elemental effects on both, I met the Wind God. No match for a competitor to Google Chrome. Oh shit, I'm actually about to die. Time to end this. Oh shit, I'm dying. Hey, I got it though. Phew, that god almost blew my flame out. And with that, the legend of Crimson Fox was complete. I didn't finish the run because Rose joined, and I wasn't about to leave her hanging. Reincarnation 5 with 2 people is rough. Enemies are tankier, hit harder, and even the traps are lethal. Playing with Mario Kart Wiimote is hard. Let me just reach for the spear. Ah, shit.
Sir, I'm pulling you over for being an abstracted driver.
Alright, back to the game. I kept going down because I couldn't recover my armor fast enough. Reincarnation 5 is actually difficult. We wiped in the very first section. Honestly, I blame Rose though. I was trying to stack up to the full 3000 bonus damage on easy kill again, but our second run, we were killing things too fast. I might have to do this one solo. I finally unlocked every weapon in the catalog, officially making me an arms dealer. On the same run, I pushed my cleave bonus up to around 1800 damage. Then we died before I could reach 3000. Unfortunate. Rose dipped, so I ran a few heroes solo on Reincarnation 5. I died a lot. I was so happy. We finally hit a wall. We finally found something to overcome. Oh boy, another daily. I loaded in, saw it was all about elemental damage, and immediately locked in Lee. Duh. Right on cue, I got a Viper sight. From there, it played out exactly how you'd expect. This daily was just as easy as all the other ones, which only left me wondering how many of these do I have left to do. While cleaning up some random achievements, I dropped the difficulty a notch to make things a little smoother. I know, I just said I was happy about hitting a wall, but this was more maintenance work. Next target. As Tao, summon 45 swords in a single swords out, or primary ability use. I started fishing for Sword Shadow and Luminous Heart Ascensions, and on top of that, I had to summon 10,000 swords over time. This was gonna take a little bit. Rose was also playing Tao, which unfortunately didn't help my sword count at all. We got destroyed. Tao is pure DPS, not really tanky, and running double glass cannon on a higher difficulty is just asking for trouble. Variety in hero types actually matters here. Rose swapped over to the tankier Chun Sui, and I wish the moaning would stop still. To help her beef up, I handed over my veteran scroll, Teamwork. Also, I grabbed the Ascension Refresh perk, allowing me to reroll once per goblet. And of course I found a Viper Sight. As usual, the run was basically decided from there. I checked the damage numbers between Rose and me, and I was way ahead. But it made me think, the game really should show damage tanked too. That's arguably just as important as damage dealt. Not that I want to give Rose any credit. I still hadn't got what I needed by the time we slaughtered the Pole Monarch, but we were in Boundless Dreams, so I could keep grinding. The problem, enemies kept scaling and scaling and scaling, and eventually they overwhelmed us, and we wiped, losing the 5 stacked Ascensions I'd built around. What a shame. I was actually mildly annoyed here, but not annoyed enough to stop playing Tao. Royal Guard for extra Ascensions? Yes please. Tracker? Hardly know her. Evil Devouring Talisman? Absolutely. Hotel? You'll have to Google that one. I found the Blessing in Disguise scroll. It limits your Ascension options to 2, but gives you 3 chances to take both. That means I could thin the Ascension pool even further, and in theory, get the ones I needed faster. This is around when the game started getting so laggy that I genuinely couldn't tell what was happening anymore. Particles everywhere, numbers flying, swords spamming non-stop. I dropped my settings a bit to stabilize things. Oh shit, what's up, Borderlands? Finally, 1 Sword Shadow, and then a second. That was enough. I was finally able to sword dance. From there, I just kept the run alive, charging and spamming swords at every chance I got. Somewhere along the way, I became an occultism leader, although that one was just for unlocking every scroll. And after summoning what felt like an ungodly number of blades, I triggered a full-on sword storm. At that point, the run had served its purpose. Rose and I let it go. The enemies were trying their hardest, but it honestly looked like we were so bad we couldn't even die correctly. Rose dipped again, so I checked out the new daily challenge, Explosive Carnival. Albi felt like the obvious choice, naturally tanky, and he even has an explosion-focused ascension tree that I'd completely forgotten about. Perfect. I tore through the early stages without any resistance, but when I reached the Pole Monarch, with only a handful of ascensions online, I actually died on a daily challenge. So I ran it back. The first attempt had only taken 9 minutes anyway. Same story, different ending. I blasted through the stages, reached the Monarch again, and this time I knew how to dodge the purple balls. Man, it must be cold out here. And with that, I was finally crowned Master of Daily Challenge. Next up, I started as Nona. All I had to do was distract 500 enemies by slamming them with Iron Wing. Easy. I just spammed it when it was off cooldown. Since that alone wasn't exactly thrilling, I added a second objective. Complete a run on Reincarnation without ever purchasing any spiritual blessing. Of course, a Viper Sight destined its way into my hands. At this point, it's guaranteed. Oh great, that storm I caused earlier decided to come back. Time to take shelter from storm. After that, the rest of the run was easy as hell. We were fully in control the entire time. Next up, as Leiluo, I had to complete a run using only snipers, the Foundry, and my abilities on Nightmare difficulty or higher. I wasn't exactly scared, but I still kept it on the lowest Nightmare level possible. I wasn't very comfortable with this hero yet, and for the sake of my sanity, I decided I wouldn't even pick up a weapon unless it was a sniper. I stuck with the Foundry. No snipers were found anywhere. I spent most of the run sprinting away from hordes, desperately trying to find one before things got out of hand. Eventually, the numbers caught up to me. The Foundry just wasn't enough, and I was overwhelmed. Still, no big deal, I fired up the next run. For Leiluo's gifted man talent, I picked the Patrimonial Sniper Rifle, which is actually a crossbow. Still, it was a huge upgrade over the Foundry. Then I found Deft Hands, letting me fire for 2 seconds without consuming ammo after a kill. If I kept the chain going, one shot could wipe out an entire pack of enemies. And after enhancing it to 4 seconds, now we were talking. I also picked up a double caliber from a soul vendor, which paired beautifully with my Deft Hands. Enemies were dropping like flies. Oh, never mind, I'm already dead. I suppose when your eye is glued to a scope, enemies can sneak up on you pretty easily. I picked up a bloody drill, and at the time I didn't even realize how good it was. The weapon automatically applies bleed, and crits spread that bleed to enemies within 8 meters. Combined with Leiluo's lightning splash damage, one shot could wipe out entire groups. I temporarily dropped the bloody drill for a piercing flame, not because it was stronger on its own, but because pairing fire with lightning triggers manipulation. Enemies start turning on each other, fighting for me instead of against me. Other than that, the run went smoothly. For most of it, I genuinely felt like an assassin, picking enemies off before they even realized I was there. Pulling the evil banishing talisman also helped a lot. Eventually, my bloody drill was hitting so hard that I skipped an entire phase of Yorohime-Maru. That's real power, and when Gluttony finally went down, I heard a thunderous growl. Was that me or his gut? Next target. As Lyn, I had to execute every boss using her primary ability, Frost Burial, on Nightmare difficulty or higher, while solo. I'd already enjoyed playing Lyn before, so this seemed straightforward enough. I got a tracker early on, so this run was already in the bag. There's a reason I like this gun. At the Ascension Fusion, I picked Sustained Fire for fire rate and removed Cold Wave Surge from the pool, because honestly, who needs defense when your offense hits so hard nothing can even touch ya? I encountered Lu Wu and had to be careful not to kill him too quickly. I slowly walked his health down, inching it just below the lethal line, then boom! Frost Burial. Execution complete. Bring the next prisoner to the block. I picked up an upgrade to my initial lethal line, which was nice reassurance that I'd be able to trigger the execution more reliably. I also found an enhanced tracker, giving it a 46% chance to fire an extra bullet. Without thinking, I slipped right back into my usual crit-heavy fire rate build. Ah, Wind God. Puny God. It felt almost wrong not holding down the fire button, but some kills are worth savoring. I eased him down to the lethal line and finished him. Ah, the Interdependent Fortunes modifier. Clutch. I get to pick 4 scrolls, but whatever I choose also buffs the enemies listed below. One of my picks was Evil Devouring Talisman. It invalidates all cursed scrolls, but when an enemy hits me, I get a random curse effect for about 5 seconds. Which means I can now grab curses freely. They won't affect me, but they will weaken the enemies. Good trade, I think. And to top it off, I pulled Merciless Combo. I was starting to worry I might accidentally shoot the next boss to death. Yorohime-Maru! I charge you with piracy. What say you in your defense? Ow, yeah, that's a pretty good defense. Good thing I had fake death, because I almost killed him before I could kill him. Let's skip to the finale. Hull Monarch. I swapped to my Foundry to whittle him down, worried I'd crit too hard and delete him instantly. I walked his health just under the lethal line and finished him with Frost Burial, perfecting my Frost Strike. Rose joined and Yoshi jumped in too. Yoshi's a verified Gunfire professional, hundreds of hours in the game, and he'd been feeding me tips throughout the hunt so far. I swapped back to Leiluo to grind. I needed 1,000 seconds of Fatal Current, so we turned on Boundless Stream to keep the run going as long as I needed. I spammed the ability whenever it came off cooldown, and didn't even bother with the sniper build I liked so much earlier. Eventually I became a Son of Thunder, while clearing Reincarnation 5. We were absolutely carried by Yoshi. I felt like an Italian toddler, frankly. My next target. Consume all energy to cast Lee's primary ability 200 times. Why are you explaining it like this? That sounds easy. Well, because certain ascensions can completely stop your progress here. And of course I picked Energetic Spirit. Come on, devotee. It literally says it increases your energy pool. I guess I was a little excited about that 50% recovery speed to think it through.
Was that something you did, Rose? What the fuck was that? I mean, you jumped 10 million damage, Yoshi Egg, so I think that was something you did.
Yeah, okay, this guy is just showing off. Thankfully, we were on Boundless Stream, so once we cleared the Jokel, I could swap my Ascensions around and get rid of Energetic Spirit. Dude, why did you grab the second tier of it? So I spammed my ability, and spammed it, and spammed it. I truly spared no effort. Next target. As Chensui, I needed to hit an enemy with 80 stacks of Fifth Sensation. Fist sensation builds based on how far you've moved in the last few seconds, so I started prioritizing movement speed and dash upgrades. Ascensions like gradual progression increased my dash distance, and dominating fist raised the floor for my fist sensation stacks. I also grabbed the veteran scroll for a little extra tankiness. This run went like most of the others. Enemies barely existed, we blew through them without any resistance. Honestly, moments like this made me think a lot of these achievements should probably be locked behind a higher difficulty wall. Something like only obtainable on Reincarnation 4 or higher. At least then, each one would actually feel like an achievement. Rose handed me a Starfly, insisting I used it based on her previous experience with Chansui. When his shield was up, auto-attacking weapons like Starfly keep firing, unlike the weapon I'd been using before. She had a point for once, and somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, I created a blue wave. Next target, as Zixiao, on Nightmare difficulty or higher, obtain only one rarity of scrolls for the entire run and survive all acts. Doesn't sound too bad, and it gives me another chance to actually figure out how the owl works. I decided I would go for rare scrolls. Commons would give me more options, but weaker effects, while legendaries would be really strong if I ever found any. Rare felt like a really safe middle ground. Also, triple comeback is a rare, just in case. From the Spiritual Remnant, I grabbed the Occult Booster, giving any scroll a 20% chance to be enhanced. Since I still didn't really understand Zixiao's abilities, I leaned more on raw weapon damage instead. I also found Fate Thread for extra Astro Aspect capacity, and the ability to replace the lowest quality Astro Aspect with a random one meant I could farm for legendary aspects like crazy. I had to keep reminding myself to only pick rare scrolls. Then, Interdependent Fortune showed up, and of course I accidentally picked a legendary. Thankfully, it drops on the ground instead of going straight to your inventory, unless it's a curse. Sometimes it physically hurt to ignore scrolls, but rules are rules. I did find Blessing of Disguise though, and since we were already late into the run, I just took every ascension it offered from that point forward. On my way to the end, I was ambushed! Alright, fine. That's not really a surprise at this point, but it was by multiple elite enemies! Still not surprised? Fair enough. But I was surprised when the game suddenly christened me a Hell Hunter. Like many times before, Pole Monarch fell, and by sticking to rare scrolls only, I proved my unwavering preference. Next target, as Qing Yan gained at least 3,000 stacks of easy kill in a single run. After a failed run earlier, I was determined to hunt this one down. Right away, I picked up Fake Death. From there, I moved through each section, doing one thing over and over again, slapping enemies to death with Cleave whenever possible. To top it off, my very first ascension was Cleave Carnival, and from that moment on, I upgraded my Cleave every chance I got. I was ambushed again! My terrible luck! These two almost killed me, but Fake Death saved the run. For surviving that scare, I was rewarded with Tranquil Wind, restoring armor every time I cleaved. That was huge. With 10% armor restored per cleave, I basically stopped coming close to death. Tranquil Wind 2 for 20% armor back. Tranquil Wind 3 for 30% armor back. And finally, the ascension I needed, Easy Kill. Because I'd already been cleaving everything in sight, it retroactively gave me 2,580 bonus damage. From there, my cleave damage just kept climbing, gaining altitude like a soaring eagle. Next goal, as Crossing Z, kill 10 enemies in one single soul strike. Rose joined me for some monkey business, with a side objective of 500 total soul strike kills. I don't know what Rose was building for, but I committed fully to soul strike ascensions. At first, I assumed soul strike would scale with skill damage, so I built my whole run around that. Later, after actually reading the ability again, I realized it scales off the damage of your currently held weapon, which meant my entire build was wrong. We blitzed through the game as usual until we reached Gluttony. For some reason he just kept stalling, almost like he didn't actually want to die or something.
This fight is a fucking snooze fest. Okay. This fight could have been an email.
We found a corrupt monk. He spawns these super weak lantern spirits, so I kited the whole horde and softened them up with foundry shots. I already had almost every cudgel ascension at this point, all but one. That was more than enough for a single soul strike to wipe them out and crown me Soul Taker. After about 14 minutes of attempts, Rose finally threw in the towel. I felt bad that she didn't get it, and unfortunately, I have no idea which ascension she took. I picked up a Dragon Breath with 2,360 damage, which was perfect for speeding things up. Checking my progress, I saw I already had 194 cudgel kills, so the rest was just grinding it out. From that point, I only used the cudgel to attack. Eventually, I reached the point where I could spam the ability faster than its cooldown. I think it was safe to say my primary had become a deadly strike. I had to clear the first 3 difficulties in under 30 minutes each, or the pizza is free, and I need my tip money. I chose Chun Sui, since he already benefits from both movement speed and dashes through his fist sensation. I ran it solo on normal difficulty, found an illusion shotgun, and just ripped and tore through the entire game, skipping vaults, ignoring loot, and not even bothering to recycle weapons. On the way, I became a worm hunter, for killing 50 worms over time. I picked up a Hell and a Claw Spray, rolled both to plant spores on hit, and stuck with the Claw Spray. The stacks scale off the projectile count of the other weapon in your inventory, and once it hits 30 stacks, it dumps out a massive burst of damage. This clip alone should convince you we need to ban high-capacity assault squirt guns.
Oh, holy shit, those died like instantly. I just have to be somewhat accurate and then shit dies.
Even with that setup, I found an angelic aura with an even higher fire rate. At that point, it was over. The game was no match for this professional athlete. I jumped into elite difficulty with the same strategy. Rose joined, and I picked up a tracker. This run was over before it even began. Rose, we're speed running. Get out of the vault! I got my crit build online, then I focused on movement speed and dash distance ascensions, and the run just flew by. At that point, I may as well have been a sports car. Nightmare time. Rose dipped. Coward. Same strategy though. Runs like this start to fall apart when you don't get good weapons, and I ended up stuck in a room fighting 4 full waves. The first act clocked in at 8 minutes 42 seconds, barely on pace. Enemies were dodging my shots like this is Dark Souls. By the middle of Act 2, the timer had already blown past 20 minutes. It turns out I'd been taking the extra power from vaults for granted. I tried again as Crossing Z, and once again I got weapons I wasn't used to. Rose and I went down a lot, and after all that struggling, we didn't even make it past Act 2. So I picked Nona for her mech tank. If enemies aren't targeting me, I can actually deal damage, not to mention my favorite ascension in the game, Battle Pace. Rose swapped to Chun Sui for the same reasons I had before. In my hour of need, a Viper Sight found its way into my hands. Surely a blessing from RNGesus. We cleared Act 2, and my confidence started to come back. Rose hooked me up with the deflection shield, cutting 90% of damage from far enemies but making close range absolutely lethal. So I stayed in the back, let Iron Wing run wild, and just sniped with the Viper Sight. It definitely helped that I had maxed out Iron Wing's wood armor too. The Abyssal Serpent was slain, and just like that, we were finally free from the speedruns. The sky is the limit now. After those high-octane runs, we slowed things way down and went hunting for something a bit more grindy. I cranked the difficulty back up to Reincarnation 1 and picked Chun Sui. The goal was simple, block 500 attacks, so I spammed my shield and we were still killing everything too fast. I picked up some enhanced advanced joggers, cutting my dash cooldown in half and giving me a 33% chance to have no cooldown at all. I picked up an ascension called Mighty Stream, extending my shield duration and every dash refunds half a second, stacking up to 6 seconds total. That's actually perfect. Rose hooked me up with a propulsion device, giving me 3 dash charges. I could now dash infinitely, and on top of that, Mighty Stream 2, boosting my shield's base duration even further. I still wasn't getting as many shield blocks as I expected, so I dropped the Starfly to stop killing things. I tried playing bodyguard for Rose, but instead she just killed everything too fast. Eventually, Rose got tied up in a vault, and I had a full group of enemies all to myself. Finally, progress. I demonstrated my absolute defense. Next run, Yoshi joined. His plan? Push us all the way to Reincarnation 9, then dip and leave us to deal with the achievements ourselves. Questionable strategy, but hey, I don't mind riding coattails. I picked Zizao to grind out his achievement, releasing 200 legendary Astra Houses. Turns out they all have to be gold for it to count. Great. So Yoshi started funneling me legendary scrolls to boost my odds. I grabbed the Card Printer Ascension, which every time I gained aspects, I had a chance to get extra secondary skill uses, which meant more aspects. somewhere along the way I hit 100 revives. I had officially become a combat medic. I picked the Persistence Ascension and immediately lost all my existing aspects. Not exactly what I had in mind. It wasn't run ending, just annoying. I'd much rather keep re-rolling and maybe hold on to my legendary aspects. Once everything was set up, the build just took over. I was pumping out legendary Astro Houses non-stop. I ended up grinding all 200 in a single run. Meanwhile, Rose was working on full force, forcing us to wait on her while I spammed my legendary Astro Houses. It honestly felt like we were having a sparring session in this arena. But to me, it wasn't just legendary Astro Houses. They were Astro Homes. The game called it Destiny's Choice, but my choices definitely had something to do with it. Next goal, as Qing Yan killed 5 enemies in a single pounce 50 times. Early on, I got a beetle elite that kept spawning groups of 5. Perfect little beetles. All I had to do was keep her alive. It was a bit grindy, but honestly, effortless. I landed airstrike after airstrike, and once it was done, I ended the run. There was nothing left to chase here. Next goal. Kill 30 fiddler crabs using only fire damage in a single battle. Now, I know that sounds incredibly easy, and honestly, some of you probably got this one by accident. I chose Lee, since she's all about fire. I was told to play on normal mode. I thought that just meant not reincarnation, because normal is so easy, I basically treated it like a tutorial. That mattered more than I expected because there's an event that only appears on true normal called Demonic or on Nirvana, which turns slain enemies into the fiddler crabs I needed. I found an area with Mystic Rune Genesis. Enemies that summon crabs. Perfect, right? Nope. These crabs look exactly like fiddler crabs, but they don't count. I farmed probably 75 of them before I started questioning it, only to find out I was in the wrong area the whole time. That one stung. So I restarted the run because I'd already reached the end without getting what I needed. So I booted up Reincarnation, planning to loop Boundless Dream until it finally showed up. And then I was reminded it only works on normal difficulty. Ugh, I was so bored playing this.
This is the most mindless that I've been while playing this game. This is the most boring run I've ever done of anything. Yeah, this is brain-meltingly easy. It's hard not to fall asleep. Yeah, that's what it is. Dude, I'm so fucking bored with normal mode, you have no idea. I need a shotgun. My mouth is empty and I need to chew on something.
Run after run, I just didn't get it, so I reset over and over. To break the monotony, Rose pulled me into Spiritual Assault. I set up my charms and we jumped in, and I picked Nona for obvious reasons. This mode hits you all at once. Constant upgrade pop-ups, enemies swarming, and barely any space to breathe. Rose went down early, but years of COD zombies kicked in, and I trained the horde and we started picking them off. I stacked wood armor ascensions for Ironwing, I grabbed Spirit Feline for myself, doubling incoming damage but capping each hit at 14% of my max health. Pair that with any sort of regen, and I was basically unkillable. I didn't really care for this mode. Horde modes are just more interesting when there's an objective beyond survive for X amount of time. 20 minutes in and we reached Gluttony. This fight took forever. Not because it was hard, but because it just wouldn't end. And Rose even healed him back to full at one point. We ran it again and won, but by then I already knew this was just going to be a footnote in this video. And honestly, I hated it. Not because it was difficult by any means, but because it was painfully boring. And just to top it all off, my game crashes right as Rose is about to kill Gluttony. At that point, I wasn't bored anymore, I was starting to get pissed. So I returned to the fiddler crabs. I was told that if I Alt F4'd after reaching the next area without touching the campfire, my game would refresh the last 4 levels, letting me fish for the event more efficiently. So naturally, I Alt F4'd before reaching the campfire, meaning the layout didn't change at all. Anger. I finally Alt F4'd correctly, after a failed run, and got nothing. Fine. Next run, I forgot again. At that point, I was done. The constant trickle of half-useful information, the misunderstandings, yeah, my fault, but paired with the mind-numbingly easy normal mode, it all just built up into pure frustration. I had to step away.
Because I don't remember that from last run. Huh. I don't think they can spawn on the day variant. because then it's just the hermit crab, right? So I'm gonna alt F4. I hate this. Oh, fuck. I didn't even go to the end. So I'm gonna have the same shit. God damn it. I think I'm done with stream today. I can't take this anymore. This is fucking stupid.
I came back, ready to hunt these crabs down. This time I had the setup right. Alt F4 actually refreshed the layout. Perfect. Each attempt only took about 10 minutes now. I attempted this not once, not twice, but 12 times. Nothing. This achievement is a travesty. I wasn't gonna let it ruin my day any further, so I gave up for now. Next goal. As Momo, I need to reach 180 ink point. Side objective, stay in ink form for a total of 2,000 seconds. Rose and I jumped into Reincarnation 8 without Yoshi. Yikes. At least Momo is actually pretty straightforward when you read her abilities. I could activate my primary and take significantly less damage while dealing solid AoE around me. I picked up Breathing Rhythm, boosting my ink gain by 50%. So I tested just how high I could push it. 177. We're only 3 away. Looking at Momo's talents, once you reach her 6th ascension, you get an extra one for free. That seems pretty strong, so I held on to it. Then I saw it. Continuous design, plus 8 seconds of duration, and it generates ink orbs that boost ink points on pickup. Perfect. I grabbed it, pushed past the threshold, and hit 180 ink points with a poised brush, ready to strike. This was actually a lot of fun, so I leaned into it, spamming my primary until my spirit and shade became one. We finished the run, finally unlocking Reincarnation 9. And this is where things spike. Every enemy now gets unique buffs. Suddenly, everything is a lot more dangerous to deal with. Next goal. As Kang Jue, I need to reach a 300 combo in a single use of my primary, Rage Morph. We slowed things way down, playing it methodically. I picked up Eternal Cloud, boosting my Vigor recovery, basically Kang Jue's mana. We ran into an elite, and this tanky bastard just refused to die. I also picked up Star Tempest, restoring Vigor on punch during my primary and speeding up my attacks. Then we reached Lu Wu, and he demolished me. I just couldn't dodge him like I normally do. Alright, Lu, I didn't know your game. I popped Rage Morph, charged into a group, and my health just evaporated. I didn't go down, but I bailed out immediately, dropping back to my normal form. Then Yoshi chimed in. I could use my throwable key during Rage Morph to heal at the cost of some vigor. That would have been nice to know. Rose tucked herself away in a vault, and I unleashed my unrivaled wrath on the Horde. Thanks for the tip, Yoshi. Rose went off to grab dinner, and I got bored, so I just kept going without her. She missed out on scrolls, ascensions, and the pain of fighting a boss on Reincarnation 9. To make it up to her, I handed over Evil Devouring Talisman when she got back. Eventually, we got nuked by a lobster. The run was over. What a shame. We did way better than I expected on our first run of Reincarnation 9, though. We swapped over to Spiritual Jade to knock out its only achievement, and it was way more relaxed than the last Spiritual Jade run. Odd. Oh, there's the Horde. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. It was ridiculously easy, and my thoughts on the mode haven't really changed since the last time. After a few runs, Spiritual Jade was conquered. I checked the achievement list and realized I only had 69 seconds left of keeping enemies suspended midair, so I booted up a run as Kang Jue. But before that, check this out.
Well, that was sick.
I ended the stream as my enemy's soaring shadow faded into nothing. As Yo-Yo, I had to apply max stacks of Parasite, which is 20, 2,000 times in one run. Yeah, that's a lot. So naturally I jumped into Reincarnation 9 on Endless Journey. Why not? I played it safe at first, letting my leaf spirits do most of the work. But sometimes explosions just find you. At first I was excited. Finally, some more resistance, and then it disappeared. I started tearing through Reincarnation 9 like it was nothing, stacking Ascensions for leaf spirit damage and range until they had infinite reach. At that point, I wasn't playing the game anymore, I was so far above it. Pole Monarch was erased, and I stepped into the Endless Journey. which, by the way, isn't very endless with this timer in the top right. That didn't last very long. Being unkillable sounds fun until you get bored. Gluttony fell right after, back to back with the Pole Monarch. So, I pivoted to Boundless Dream, something that's truly endless, and started spamming Leaf Spirits. But there was a problem. Enemies died way too fast. I even used an auto-clicker and still couldn't stack Parasite fast enough. So I pushed to Reincarnation 10 and it felt exactly the same. If you get a bad start, you die pretty much instantly. If you get a good start, you become a god. There's no middle ground, no close calls, no struggle, just instant failure or instant domination. And honestly, I find it really boring. My best attempt got me close, around 1400 stacks, but I ran out of time for stream. And that's when Yoshi pointed me toward the Lone Wolf Bizarre Dream, giving me a free spiritual blessing. Perfect. So I grabbed Ultimate Gambler.
No, I lost it all.
Getting the ascensions I needed was easy, but I dropped the difficulty down to Reincarnation 6. I wanted enemies tanky enough to stack onto, but not so dangerous that they'd delete me. From there, it was simple. Find a tanky enemy and spam my secondary. The build came together around 3 key pieces. Ally Summon, 60% chance to spawn a Leaf Spirit that applies 2 Parasite stacks per hit. Spore Spread, enemies with 5 or more stacks transfer Parasite on death. And Forest Boon, more secondary capacity, and more drops to keep the cycle going. Essentially the engine. I spammed my secondary like a Nigerian prince trying to reach out and give you some money. It worked. I climbed all the way up to 1800 stacks, and then I died to this mutant penguin. I was so close. I tried again and died, and again. At one point, I even died to a trap. I was starting to lose my mind. Eventually, I was crowned Leaf Lord. But I felt like a peasant, toiling away in a field. There's still so many Parasite stacks to get. I climbed all the way back up to 1700 stacks, and I was not losing this run. Not again. I nearly died, but there was a vault nearby. So I dove in and waited for fake death to come off cooldown. Thankfully, the inhabitants weren't hostile. From there, I played it safe, jumping between the vault and the main area every time fake death procced. I was terrified. Rose called me a cheater, but I called it a tactical non-death. I slowed everything down. This was the most scared I'd been the entire achievement hunt. I was right on the edge of greatness, and one mistake would send me right back off of it. After hours of trying, I finally performed the Wild Rite. And just like that, only one achievement stood between me and 100%. Those damn fiddler crabs. Remember how each stage in Act 3 can roll either a daytime or nighttime variant, and I needed the nighttime version? Yeah, I got tired of flipping that coin, so I started wondering, can I just remove that variable entirely? After some digging, I found out there wasn't always a daytime variant in Act 3, so I dug deeper, and I found a way to downpatch the game. I'll put a link to the video I used in the description. If Gunfire Reborn won't give me control, I'll just have to take it for myself. So I time traveled back to 2021 to a patch where Crab Buffet had just been added. Problem solved, right? Not quite. All of my talents were gone. Every little buff I'd built up, gone. And it turns out those little buffs add up because suddenly even normal mode was kicking my ass. So now I had a choice. Grind through an older patch with worse quality of life or go back to the current version and deal with the RNG. I chose to grind instead. It was actually refreshing to feel threatened again, even on normal difficulty. Those talents really do add up. I died, spent my soul essence, and jumped right back in, only to die again, in the desert this time. I spent more soul essence only to realize you don't get to keep it between runs. Yeah, I'm really glad they changed that, because this sucks. The Ichthyosaurus offspring hiding from me mid-fight didn't help morale either.
Just sit there and let me shoot you, please. Why are you underground again? I fucking hate you, dude. Oh my god.
I finally made it to the area where the crabs should spawn, but no dice. I even tried save scumming, still nothing. What a shame. And just to top it off, I died, losing all my progress and getting sent back to the start because the game actually checks if you die before you alt F4. Eventually, Rose checked the fandom wiki.
So, good news or bad news?
We'll go. Let's just hit me with the bad.
We might have been wrong.
About what?
So, it used to be in one scene that we had to do it all. But apparently it's in one run.
Okay. That doesn't really change my
Which-
situation then.
It kind of does.
Maybe I should
'Cause
just
if you go on
check vaults.
reincarnation, I mean, if you go on reincarnation, you could just loop back through and just keep using.
Oh no, no, you can't. No, nope. No, Rose, that can't be true. There's no way. It says a single battle. What is a battle? No.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it could be.
It could be.
It could be wrong. I mean.
So I patched the game back to the current version. All that research, all that effort for nothing. And just to make it better, my talents were wiped again. Dear God, I do not want to grind all of that back. Yoshi, my savior, told me to click this tiny little button, and just like that, my talents, my unlocks, everything was still there, just on a different save. I will never forget this, Yoshi. Call upon me in your hour of need. So Rose, Yoshi, and I set out into Boundless Dream. We finally reached the area where the crabs spawn. I picked off a few outside and then stepped into a vault. It was a corrupt monk, but he spawns these fiddler crabs as backup. Perfect. We started farming them until he just stopped summoning them. I stepped out of the vault. My teammates stayed behind. This was mine. After all that struggle, I prepared a crab buffet. And with that, my journey came to a temporary close. I had a lot of things I liked, and a lot that I didn't. So let's start with a simple idea. What does an average game look like? Let's call that a 5 out of 10. First, the gameplay loop is genuinely satisfying, especially early on when you're constantly upgrading your talents. Every run feels like progress, and that momentum carries you forward. It does fall off though. Eventually you run out of meaningful ways to spend soul essence, and that sense of progression slows down. But I get it. If this system kept scaling indefinitely, like something out of Path of Exile, it would probably break the balance of the game entirely. Second, the character design is incredibly cohesive, both visually and mechanically. Each character has a distinct identity, and that really comes through the more you play. Early on, I did say runs started to blend together regardless of who I picked, but that was mostly during the Victory of X grind. Once I started digging deeper into each character's kit, the differences became much more meaningful. Third, the developers have clearly put real effort into quality of life improvements over time. Going back to the older version made that very obvious. There were so many small things missing, systems that now feel standard, that made the experience noticeably worse. It really highlights how much the game has improved with continued support. Fourth, and this is a smaller one I didn't mention throughout the video, but they do a great job avoiding fear of missing out. Seasonal content isn't locked behind limited time windows, and cosmetics like skins and emotes can still be earned whenever you get around to them. That might not matter to everyone, it definitely doesn't really matter to me, but it's something I respect. A lot of modern games lean heavily on time-gated content, and if you've got a job or other commitments, you just miss out unless you pay. Gunfire doesn't do that, and that's worth mentioning. But translation issues cause a lot of unnecessary confusion, and that confusion wastes time. I was genuinely tempted to put Crab Buffet into tier 4, but once I actually understood what the achievement was asking me to do, it was easy. Most of the achievements aren't difficult, they're just time sinks. About 85% of all achievements landed in tier 1, thoughtless. Only one made it to tier 3, and roughly 14% sat in tier 2. Enemy variety is another weak point. There are only 8 bosses to learn and a few dozen regular enemies to deal with, some of which are very similar. That's enough to understand the game, but not enough to keep it fresh for long. And finally, on higher difficulties, the game becomes feast or famine. You either die immediately, or become an unstoppable machine tearing through everything. That middle ground, where the game actually tests you, is rare. An engaging game lives on tension, near-death moments, and adaptation. Gunfire just skips all that. And for all of these reasons, Gunfire lands at a 6 out of 10. Right down the middle. A little bit good, not awful, not something I'd call truly challenging either. But what do you think? Do you agree with the verdict of the Crusade, or did Gunfire challenge you in ways it never challenged me? Let me know down in the comments. Now that you're finally here, you're probably wondering what's next.
This is the 27th of last seed, the year of Akatosh 433. These are the closing days of the Third Era and the final hours of my life.